In order to break cycles, intentional actions must be taken to stop patterns, behaviors, and thoughts that are harmful to oneself, their families, and the community. Welcome to Carry to Full Term's Breaking Cycles podcast. On any given night in the United States, more than 47,000 women and children experience homelessness. We have been doing this work since 2014 to reduce the number of women and children currently experiencing homelessness within our communities and throughout the United States. In studio, we have Priscilla Glover, and she's omitting Pastor Priscilla Glover from her title, so we want to make sure we include that in there. And she has been a volunteer at Carry to Full Term, and she has been serving moms consistently on a weekly basis. And we've been privileged to have her time, have her expertise, and as a resource to the residents at Carry to Full Term. So before we get into the conversation, I just want to remind you that Carry to Full Term's Breaking Cycles podcast really amplifies the stories of our volunteers, our donors, our business partners, and the stories and the lives that we've seen transformed and how cycles have been broken, and the individuals who have contributed financially and with their time and efforts to see those cycles break and lives transform. So we're going to jump into the conversation with Priscilla Glover, our friend and volunteer extraordinaire. So Priscilla, hi, welcome.
Hey.
You're our third guest.
I'm excited.
I know this is not even going to be a podcast. This is going to be a catch-up chat.
Okay.
So
we'll try to make it. No,
yes. We will keep it within the time frame. But Priscilla, tell us a little bit about what brought you to Carry to Full Term and what has kept you at Carry to Full Term.
Well, I remember I heard about it through, I believe it was one of my hair clients.
Yes.
And I heard about it and the great things that you guys were doing here. And I wanted to be a part of it at that moment. But at that moment, I had so much going on in the time. I just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And so after, some years that went past, I still wanted to be a part of that. And so I just checked it out, and then I got in, and y'all put me to work.
Yeah, and that's how we work, right?
You volunteer, and you just like, where do you want to go?
Yeah, you express, and that's the thing about nonprofits. I want to be very clear when we're talking about nonprofits, because it's easy to romanticize the nonprofit work and the nonprofit world, and especially when you're doing human services work. Because on the front end, our mission, babies are born in our mission, but we're not a pro-baby birth organization. We invest in women. And so if you see us from the social media side, you see lots of pictures of babies. It really is the end result of the work that we do. So it's easy to romanticize that. Oh, I want to go over there to hold babies. Right. You rarely get to hold babies.
And you want to be a part of a partial of what you see, but not understanding the work that we put into it. Exactly. So
we are a housing organization, and our mission and our goal and our advocacy work is to invest in women, the whole woman. And as a result of that, babies are born. We never talk about their reproductive rights. We never talk about their carrying to full term decisions in terms of whether they're going to keep or not keep their babies. We don't talk about any of that. We are a housing program, and our work, we invest in moms with for the 2 years that they're here, because they could stay with us for up to 2 years, and we equip them with the tools they need. And so, like Priscilla was saying, as long as you step foot in that door after the paperwork's done and you say, I'm here to do the work, it's kind of like we were talking about in the office. It's kind of getting thrown in the deep end. You sink or swim, and most people find their fins, they swim, and you carve out your space. And so tell me a little bit about the work that you have been doing from the time you arrived, and the number of hats you may have worn, even though you came in for one thing.
Right.
How many hats have you worn since you've been here at Carry to Full Term?
The first time that I came, I think it was Christmas. I could be wrong, but that's the one that sticks with me. And I remember bringing some Christmas arts and crafts or something with the kids.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, you was here.
That was a big project.
That was a huge project.
That was a big project.
I didn't know what I was getting into. I brought my daughter with me.
I remember
we had
that.
quite a few ladies here in the program at that
Yes.
time, and we made cookies.
I remember.
And the crafts. I didn't realize,
Yes.
because I get excited with those things. We do them at home. I do them at church, with the
Yes.
Sunday school. But again, it's still, you don't know in the place that you're at what it's going to take. So
Yes.
I brought the stuff. We were ready to go. And man, I'm telling you, we worked.
You worked.
But the kids had so much fun.
They
and I
loved
believe that's
it.
I think that's what started me volunteering, because I just came in to, see where I fit or where you could use me.
Yeah.
So when you do sign up, you got to be flexible.
You have to be flexible, and it's human work, So
Yes.
yesterday we had one of our board members on the podcast, or our last episode, we had one of our board members on the podcast, and the visual and the experience that you have from the board level compared to the hands-on work that the volunteer is exposed to with the resident, it's so different. The way we talk about the work is different. The way we talk about the organization is different. And I believe the work in the residence is where you really get into, I always say, is where you get into the trenches and you do the dirty work, because it's life's work. It gets messy and it gets hard, and you cry and you celebrate and you push each other very hard. And I know in the role that you've found your groove in, you're now an instructor. So you've gone from doing arts and crafts,
hair.
Yes.
I was coming for hair.
Yes.
I babysitted.
Yes.
I have done, and I've took them. I do actually still occasionally, if they need a ride to an appointment,
Yes,
or to go get paperwork done, like whatever fits in that time frame that I allotted to be here. Like I'm all for it, because honestly, like even when I tell the ladies when we have it, it's not about the class. It's about, assisting you in the things that is going to help you to become the person that you're wanting to change into. So sometimes we might not get into the actual class meat of it because we're experiencing it.
Life,
what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, because and I love that, because a lot of times when people call to volunteer, they're calling to serve from their point of experience. So you came to serve to do the residents' hair, and I'm telling you that is a resource that I know several of our moms long for. They benefited from. They modeled the styles that you've given them. But like you just shared, you did a variety of things, and those are all roles that we have for volunteers. We need drivers, we need instructors, we need hairdressers, we need mentors, we need people to just sit there and listen, and we need babysitters. Right. And you've served in all those roles. So I thank you for you don't even get to take a hat off. You just add a hat on top. You just add a hat on top of the one that you've already been wearing, because at any given moment you might have to pull that one.
I'm sharing.
Or sharing it. So no, I sincerely appreciate that, and I thank you for sharing the perspective. Again, a lot of times people don't know that the work that we do, as you just shared, is to help women become independent and self-sufficient. So in your time at Carry the Full Term, from the day you showed up during that Christmas season, how have you seen change happen? The evolution of change happen with the residents that you've worked with?
I believe with the classes that I do have, and being a part of their lives, they start to form more of an awareness.
Wow, yes.
That we're triggering that, even in the classes, it does trigger a lot of different things. It opens them up. They share, and I don't have to ask. And so it gives them a safe place. But again, I see awareness. I see them repeating things that have been said, and they've changed certain things, because I'll ask, okay, so did we do this last week, or what did we do today, or what did we do this week? And we'll write lists down, and and see what our days look like. Okay, what are we implementing from what we're learning, and or what's still on you that you don't understand, or what are you working on, stuff like that.
So a lot of people don't know that our housing program, really takes care of the crisis that women, when they initially reached out to us from a point of pregnancy and homelessness. So when they move into the house, that takes care of that immediate crisis.
Yes.
And then they're able to stay with us for up to 2 years. And then our program is built around 6 objectives. And one of the 6 that you're talking about is education. And the education is building the awareness. And so tell me, which courses are you teaching?
So there's 2 books that we're reading out of. One is Atomic Habits by James Clear. The other one is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. Those are 2.
Those are amazing authors. I mean,
And you would think that they would go together.
Yeah.
Because they both, really talk about the same things, but just differently.
Yeah.
There's a biblical perspective, and then there's this guy that has gone through his own rehabilitation and recovery.
Yes.
And he's sharing, hey, what does it take for change?
Yes.
And that topic shows up in our conversation a lot with the girls. Like, what does it take for change? Because even though, like, we might have a great day today, but tomorrow might not be as great.
Right.
But yet we don't abandon change.
Right.
And that means the process, we can't abandon that. We have to get in that momentum and still move forward. And we just have to shift and, just reshift again.
Yeah, I saw people doing that. Talking about the book Atomic Habits, and then we had a resident manager that came on board, and she's like, "You guys really need to adopt this book as part of your education curriculum." And so I was just like, I've never heard of it before, and I like to read the curriculums that we take on. And I picked up that book and I started reading it. And then I listened to a podcast that he was on, and I couldn't make it through the first episode because he talked about the accident he had, and it was touch and go. It was life and death. But then I picked it up again and I started reading. And in the podcast that I listened to, he actually talked about, in the book, it talked about, gave an example of a gentleman who would get dressed. And we talked about this in the office yesterday. Every day he would get dressed to go to the gym, and he would only go for 5 minutes. And I was like, that doesn't even make sense. And then he explained, it's not a matter of going to the gym for 5 minutes. This man chose to show up for himself.
Yes.
And in the process of showing up for himself mentally, he prepared himself, he got dressed, and then he went to the location. And that was change that he made, and he did it for 12 months.
Yeah, but we don't know where he was before that.
Exactly.
So he might not have never been in the gym.
Right.
But 5 minutes every day consistently. Creating that habit that book talks about is what it's implementing a new ritual, a new routine.
Yes.
It's muscle memory.
And I love all the examples that James Clear gave in his book, Atomic Habits. It's so, especially if you are just stuck and I'm a person, if I have an idea, if I have a vision, I always see the end. I always see the complete big picture of how beautiful it looks, and then I go to build to get to the end. And it's kind of like Emily and I were talking about that this morning. I have my website and I see what it's going to be, and then I'm building it. 6 hours later, I'm like, it looks exactly like how it did.
You're like, how can I see the end, but yet this don't look like it? What does it take to get to the...
What does it take? And that's exactly what our program is about. We have women who, however long they've been homeless, maybe it's for only a season, maybe it has been for throughout their formative years. It's probably the only habit they know. Homelessness. And then we have this program that is what the county usually referred to as wraparound services, or what other groups and programs refer to as holistic care. But we refer to it as our investment in women. And so we have this program that's built around these 6 objectives, and it just sounds absolutely wonderful. But then you have these individuals who their habit is homelessness, but they have a vision for what that's going to look like, because they each see themselves in their homes at the end of it. But then it's, how do you get there? And you are literally in the day-to-day, in the thick of things, helping them, like you were saying, making lists, holding them accountable, following up. So how has the receptivity been? Are everyone super excited to make these changes when you are teaching it?
I think in the class, obviously we all have a fantasy of the things we want to change.
Yeah.
But then when we start putting the work for it, we say, oh man, this is harder than what I thought.
Yeah.
But then one of the things that people are realizing, again, like you said, homelessness was who they are.
Yeah.
It's changing their identity.
Yeah.
Right. And that causes, again, awareness, but it also causes effort. It causes us to change our systems.
Yeah.
Because Atomic Habits talks about systems.
Yes.
Right. And we can implement new habits, but if we don't change the system of the habits that we are in, like currently, right, then what we put in is not going to do anything.
Yeah.
So we have to implement the new, right, but we have to implement it consistently what I say is to drown out the old. But in that process, it takes a lot of self-reflection. yeah, it really just, it's that's the deep part of the class too. Sometimes people will be crying, and you told me that in the beginning.
Yeah.
People will cry, people will get angry, people will fuss because of the triggers that happen when we're reading this book. But they bring up things when we're talking about boundaries. That's the main one that sometimes the girls don't even want to do it,
Right.
because it's deep.
Yeah.
And it confronts your habits to where you are, how you're not as effective as you thought you were.
Right.
So it really comes and challenges you and your thought process and why you do what you do. But it also tells you this is why you're not going somewhere that you want to go, because you're still here doing the same thing. So it brings accountability.
Yes.
They like the material, but then sometimes they don't because of the accountability that it brings.
So when you're reading it and you're reading the example, it sounds beautiful, but then because of the kind of program that we're managing, we now have to require them to apply what they've read. Yeah. I teach a trauma class on Wednesdays, and I try to deliver the information, but we do talk about the triggers that they will experience, which is why one of the things that in the 6 objectives that our program is built around, we have a very big focus and emphasis is placed on the trauma piece. Because when we're having these conversations, each resident has each resident has a therapist. So wounds get open.
Yes.
So we do share those things, and I'm so happy that we're having this conversation, because again, we're now challenging the systems that some of our listeners have about the kind of work that we do. It's not romanticizing.
It's not just external.
It's not external. And so I do say that our program is now the new chaos, because they're used to using all the coping mechanisms to make it through and to survive as a homeless person. So they know what that produces. So they're coming into our program, and we're saying, your life, you're now going to receive the tools that will equip you to become independent and self-sufficient. We're going to provide trauma support, education, childcare, preparation for the workforce. And they're like,
right.
But what is that going to produce? What do I have to do? So it now it's a point of chaos in their life.
Right. And in place of humility is one of the main things that challenges that, because you're no longer living for you. Like you are, but you're not, because you have to submit to a structure.
A structure, which is the biggest pushback.
It is, and it's the hardest thing. And I could say that even in my life.
Yes.
We're married. We have kids.
Yeah.
You have to have a structure.
You have to have structure.
As much as the kids don't like it, they love it, because they know when they're going to get fed.
Yeah.
They know when it's bedtime. They know when, but when we just sit back and don't do anything, they're coming around, Mom, are you going to cook? But you didn't like the time frame that I said, listen, at 5:00, we're going to eat.
We're going to eat.
Everybody comes in the kitchen looking around. The structure, it's necessary.
Yes.
It is necessary.
So, the program is one of the areas that you're right, they don't like, and every resident has a schedule. The schedule is designed to teach them how to learn to live within a structured setting, in an environment that's designed to help you stay safe. So you have to ensure that your actions produce safety results, and that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And so tell me a little bit about the boundaries, because it seems like now that we're talking about the structures, and we're pushing, they're pushing back on what we're asking them to do. What have you observed with the boundaries class?
Me and my husband was talking about that yesterday, and not just here, but in general, people push back because they're being challenged to change. They've been set in their ways so long that it's hard, because you have to humble yourself. That means you got to deal with the pride that's inside of you in order to do something else. So that's Atomic Habits. Yeah. That's all, and the structure of even the day-to-day, what they go through here, the Atomic Habits really helps that.
Yes.
And we talk about that, their chores, what they need to do. So now going into boundaries, like I said, I'm telling you, they should be one book. That's why, because we shift from, I'm telling you, we'll have Atomic Habits book, but then they'll be like, oh, well, that was in boundaries. Yes. And then we'll have the boundaries class, and they're like, well, we just talked about that in the Atomic Habits.
Yes.
So the boundaries really focuses on the internal man, right? The why we're caught in the systems.
Yeah.
the why, really. And the boundaries, again, that holds us accountable, but it's a lot of relearning. And I tell the girls and people in general, because not just here, but those that I do mentor and we have a consistent conversation, you know, it's dirty, it's ugly. We feel like we're good because we've been in a way so long.
Yeah.
But then when somebody on the outside looks in and sees us, you know, and it's a total different perspective, you know, that we weren't noticed because maybe nobody's told us,
Right.
but somebody else had.
Yeah.
So now we're challenged, okay, are they lying or have I just been in the dark?
Right.
And so when we're in the dark, right, and we need somebody from the outside that has the light or that's in the light that maybe has been through this or they have awareness of where we're at, right, and they see these things, you know, for to come and take us out. That's the importance of the volunteers, the
Yes.
mentors, the caseworkers, every person that has the ability to reach in and pull somebody out by the experience that they have.
I love that visual that you created in terms of pulling somebody out. That's exactly the work. And one of the things that I wanted to say is, as much as you find resistance, and so I do teach a trauma class, and it's literally like what I've observed, especially based on the questions that I get for the Atomic Habits class, the Boundaries class, and then the trauma class. It's like a relay race. So one leg contributes to the second leg,
Yes.
contributes to the third leg. Because when
Yes.
I'm teaching the trauma and we're talking about, you know, living a certain way or understanding how your life was impacted based on what happened to you and the habits you developed as a result of it and not knowing how to put boundaries in place as a result of it. They're like, oh my gosh, we learned that in boundaries class. Like,
Nice.
It's wonderful. But
That's
then
good.
what I was also going to say is, although those things happen when volunteers come in, there is this light or this click, this moment where a clicking happens. And it could be that when they get their first job, they realize, oh my gosh, this job search thing actually works. I got my first job.
Yes,
Or
yes.
it's when they pay off a bill
Yeah.
and they're like,
That
oh my
dopamine,
gosh, yes.
that dopamine comes. It talks about that.
But the biggest thing that we have a requirement that every resident must save $500 for emergency funding. And they are always, I don't know if I can do that. I've never done that. And then they get to save that $500. And it's kind of like it becomes contagious.
Yes.
And they want to see their bank account grow. And so they get to $1,000. We get to celebrate those victories with them, but we also get to take caution, especially as we're talking about the financial management. When they
Yes.
get to $1,000,
Yes.
we have observed a pattern of residents leaving the program
Once they get that,
once they get to the $1,000.
because the system still needs to be changed.
The system is programmed to like, I am rich.
Old habits. I got it.
I
Yeah.
have $1,000. I could spend this. I could buy this. I could buy that.
Right.
And so we have to, as much as we celebrate that, we have to be cautious.
Yes.
And so that's what I wanted to talk about. When you see that click happens, or when you see that moment of the page turning, after how long have you seen that happen in their lives, and what is usually expressed by the residents when they get it?
That's a deep question. And it's more like 3 questions.
Yes, I always ask like 10 questions
I'm trying to
in
remember
one.
the first one.
Like the page turns,
The
like
page what happens
because
when the
they
page
get it.
turns?
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
within them, what have you observed, or what do you tend to observe when that clicking happens?
I believe they focus on the external part, right? Again, there's that fantasy.
Yeah,
I have what I didn't have before, but yet the mentality hasn't changed.
it's just celebrating that one quick victory.
Yeah, and it's great, but at the same time, it's kind of like winning the lottery. Me and my husband, we teach finance classes sometimes.
Yeah.
And again, it's like that. You can win the lottery, but if you don't know how to save, if
Yeah.
you don't know how to put things, if you have not created healthy habits to deal with your finances, you know, we're teaching our sons, right? And our children before they go to college. Like, listen, you can go into college, you know, we can provide for your tuition and you have this budget. This has to stretch the whole year. How many?
Not the
do
whole
we hold
year.
accountable? But look, do we
Yeah.
shut their bank account off
No.
when they
We
don't hold it?
when they don't,
Listen.
they've capped, they've reached the cap.
When they reach that cap, whoop, me
Yeah.
and my husband, we
You
shut
have-
it off.
you have to lock
You
it
gotta
down.
figure it out. You know, and that's
Yeah.
the accountability though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if they don't have accountability, then it's kind of like spanking a child. If you don't spank a child, they don't feel the pain. So with winning the lottery, if you don't have the good habits, you're going to get that money. You're going to get excited. You're going to
Yeah.
go spend frivolously.
Yeah.
But how many people invest with that?
Yeah.
Because they don't have the mentality.
Yes.
It's a growth set mentality.
Yes. And everything you just said just underscores why the program is so much bigger
Yes.
than having a mom get to her due date and delivering her baby.
Or get everything that, even when people donate. Come on.
Yes.
They see that. And now that I've seen as well.
Yes.
They're like, oh, look at this stuff.
Yes.
But at the same time, like, it's like giving to people, but yet what are they going to do with that? What's clicking
mind,
here
yes.
when they see that stuff, right?
And our community, we've been blessed to be embraced and adopted by a very kind and generous community. And so, the giving, it's we very rarely have to like make a fuss about things at all, because our community is there. We are in a wonderful community, and our residents see that, and they see it through the giving and the generosity of our community. And a lot of times when you have, like you're saying, you have the accountability systems in place and you're teaching them how to earn something. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, like when our volunteers come in and, the program is in place and it's built around earning, and there's value in earning a thing. And then the hormones that are released when someone could look back and say, I did this. Mm-hmm. When, they've clicked and they're understanding, okay, this new chaos that's this program, it actually works because now I've saved money. Now I've gotten a job. My child is in daycare. I have
Right.
2 jobs.
Right.
So when it clicks and they see the value in earning, it's easy to hijack that process, mm-hmm. especially when someone who's well-meaning just comes in and gives them something. They're conditioned to taking. They're conditioned to getting for so
many
long.
years.
Right.
How do you unwrap that in 1 week?
In 1 week.
You don't. You have to relearn, recondition.
Yes.
You got to go through, when we have babies, after we got to recondition that
we
body.
do. Yeah.
Some things, will come back, but we have to put forth the effort and the work to do that.
I love that. And I love how, all of the different parts of this conversation is really amplifying and highlighting mm-hmm. this work
Yes.
is not one and done.
No.
It's not about getting moms to deliver their babies, but it's a reliance on our volunteers.
The village, yeah.
It's an understanding of seeing when volunteers or the village, the community comes together, how our efforts could create the change that each of us see in our minds, mm-hmm. but then understanding it's hard work.
So I want to touch on something that you said. It's not one and done.
No.
So one thing with being here is that I think the great thing about being consistent,
yes,
even as a volunteer, it's great you watch a kid one day, but can you commit to being here? Can you commit to that life, maybe consistently? Because maybe just you being consistent triggers them into that, understanding how to love. Because a lot of, who we deal with, who comes in, they don't know how to love. They mm-hmm. don't know what love is. They don't know, is this a safe place? Yeah. Can I be vulnerable? Am I going to see that person again?
Yes.
Or is it going to be a different person every time? That pays a toll on our lives. And then the ones that have kids that come in, the kids, they get used to saying your name.
Yeah.
It's personal. Then they have this expectation.
Yes.
Right? And again, people that have failed relationships have been rejected or they've been let down mm-hmm. by people that were not consistent or faithful.
And the residents will say it. And
yes.
It's easy for a well-meaning person who wants to volunteer to come and say, I really am passionate about this. I want to come and sign up. And you get them on the schedule
yes.
one day a week. And it's like, oh, I don't want to go. I don't feel like I have to go. I have an appointment. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to say, I'm not showing up for this. But you're right. It takes a toll. And we hear it. The residents tell us.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm not motivated to come to this person's class. They don't show up. They, and I teach a class, and there are days I double book myself and I go late, and they're like, we waited for you.
Right.
They will tell you.
They'll tell me.
Yeah,
like,
they'll tell you.
Have this class.
They are ready.
And then before I come, they'll be sitting in there waiting for me. I might be running late, and they're just waiting like, You're supposed to be here.
And they will hold you accountable. So imagine them
Right,
waiting
right.
for you, even if they will give you grace, even if you're running late.
Right.
So when our program like this relies so heavily on our volunteers, which is what when I introduce you to this episode, you have been our consistent volunteer, and the residents tell us they will make their schedule work so they don't miss your class because they know you're going to show up for them. They show up for you. And we hear it, and people also have to understand the importance when they take on a responsibility to volunteer. It's not something that you could dismiss because they're not in your immediate biological family.
Right.
It's not generating any revenue,
Right.
but there's an investment that's being made, and it has an impact on more than one life.
Okay, so investment. People, they want to know that you care.
Yes.
More than what you say.
Yes.
And so even in the beginning of the class, I tell them, listen, don't be having no high expectations for me.
The standard.
Do not put me up here because I'm in here.
Yeah.
I've been through some things. We all have different stories.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to level the ground.
Yeah.
Don't have no expectations for me. But at the same time, you know, they need to learn that they're valued.
Yeah.
So that way, because that even makes a difference on if they're going to apply the things that they're learning. Do they, because that comes up a lot in our conversation, do you value yourself enough to make the changes?
For yourself.
Necessary for yourself.
Yeah.
Not for that person, not for me, right? Not for you, not for the ones that are here at the house, but for you.
Yeah.
And that value, a lot of times we see that it gets stripped away.
Yeah.
And they don't they don't recognize that they're living for everybody else. And they didn't, I'm telling you, in the class when we're talking, they're like, oh, I never thought about that. And it was towards them.
Yeah.
Right? Like I could do that or I could be that. But a lot of when we, in the beginning of the classes, it'll start, oh, I want to be this and be that. In the middle of the classes, after so many weeks, it's like, you know, they're starting to change their answers. Like, this is who I am. And this is what I do. This is what I want to become.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
And if you've had a dream as a child, I read somewhere the dream that you had when you were a child between 5 and 7 years old, that's actually the dream that you want to be when you grow up. And it's actually when we grow up, everything you just said, we take on these new identities because we probably see new things that probably
we see. Yes.
Yeah. And so I appreciate that. Thank you, Priscilla. One of the things you didn't share, and we're going to circle back to it.
Okay.
You are also a pastor.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about that. How you balance your life as a mom, you balance your life in the role of a pastor, you balance your life in the role of a community leader. Just tell us, and those are just a few of, you balance your role as a pickleball expert.
I don't know about expert, but a player.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, so we've been pastoring, 2011, I think. We've been pastoring in 2011. Me and my husband, we pastor. We've been ordained, as ministers and everything, back home in Kansas, where our pastors are, our spiritual parents are. And I'm gonna tell you, to do all these things as well as we have to have that structure.
Yeah,
I had to implement a lot of the things, and again, a lot of the stuff that we talk about in class. I'll talk about my personal life. I'm not scared to open up. I will reveal it because that's what they need. They need reality. Don't just tell me what to do, but show me. Show that you care, and they receive it more. So as a pastor, I get to work with people. Yeah. For me, I never did like the spotlight. I actually had anxiety when I was younger, dealing in front of people. And I didn't like to be on the platform and all the eyes and focus was on me. Yeah. Going into ministry, I loved the hospitality group. That ministry. Yes. I love that.
The servants.
In the back. I can serve. When they started calling me out, it started challenging me of who I was. Yeah. When you start getting in the open, that's pressure. Yeah. And that pressure, it shifts you, right? Yeah. And so balancing, the ministry, my home, the things that I like to do for myself, self-care. Pickleball is like therapy for me.
You don't have to tell me twice. I played pickleball with you.
She's wild, y'all.
I love it.
She come out here like an Amazon warrior.
I picked up the pickleball racket for the first time. You invited me to come play, and I knew in my mind, like, you know how the Bible talks about that God downloaded the gifting of those people for Nehemiah in the self same hour. I walked into that gym, and I felt, I felt like in that moment I was downloaded with a pickleball level, professional expertise level, and I got on the court, and I brought some trash talking with it just to match.
I'm like, who is this woman?
My professional downloaded my new
God.
professional position. Never played pickleball a day in my life.
Oh my God, you made me cry over here.
That was
too much.
And I had so much fun.
Yeah, we did. We had a good time. And
I
the people were like,
sweated everything.
"Hey, where's your friend that was with you the other night?" They like that, you know. But she was ready. You was ready though.
But we every serve almost.
So I was teaching at the same time.
Yes, you were teaching me, and I was like, okay, come again now next time, because I know my backhand is gonna miss the ball, chase it to the back. But it was great, and I see you in that space. And
we need that.
Yeah,
and it's funny because I'm out there teaching too. So and I didn't understand even with me again. You know, every year we're finding new things. We're discovering things about us. But one thing, you know, I didn't realize that I'm a teacher at heart. Yeah. It comes naturally. Yeah. You know, and the girls be like, I know you repeat things over and over. Because I have to do that for me to learn. Yeah. I don't get it like this sometimes. It takes a minute, but I repeat a lot so I can make sure I get it. Yes. Because when you get that understanding, that's what sets you free. Yeah. And so balancing all these things, and really, you know, when you're where you're supposed to be at, it's not as hard. Mm. God gives you grace. Before, I'm like, how can I do this? And how can I do that? And I don't want to be a pastor. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do that. Why y'all got to call us? Because, you know, sometimes people call you because you're faithful. Yeah. But not because you're gifted. Right. And so that, you know, that's a whole nother subject. Oh, that's good. Right. Yeah. So we're doing things just because we show up. Yes. But it doesn't mean that's where you're supposed to be at. That's good. Yeah. I love that. So calling out of the dark into the light. Yes. That's a transition. But being right where I'm at, I get joy when I come here, even if people want to fight each other because we've triggered a situation, right? At the same time, it's necessary. That stuff has to be dealt with, but in a safe place where people can, right? Because remember, like, we go in. If there's an issue, we call each other, we come in, we support that, and we help them through it. Absolutely. We didn't have that when we were growing up. We didn't have it. We didn't know how to deal with conflict and stuff. I love it because when I see what the residents are getting here at Carry the Full Term and the vast resources that they have as our volunteer pool, I am in awe. I just am in shock that we didn't have it. But because we know we didn't have it, we make those resources available. We know it's valuable. Yes, and to a vulnerable population who may not necessarily see it that way or receive it that way initially. But I thank you so much, Priscilla. And as you've been here, I've been prompted to share that if you would like to find out more about Carry the Full Term, visit our website. It's amazing. It was done by Emily, our marketing person. She has put great care into our website. And there's a link. You could sign up to volunteer or to become a volunteer. And yes, our last episode we talked about being on the board. We do have current board openings. So please take some time, visit the website. Take a look at the work that we do and how you can serve. Thank you, Priscilla. Thank you. Tell us a little about the name of your church and where it's located. The name of our church is Living Word and Worship Ministries. We are located in Manassas, Virginia, 9858 Fairmont Avenue. Mm-hmm. We're currently renting space from another church. So we're there on Sunday mornings, and we're looking forward to doing a youth group on Tuesday nights. Oh, that's so nice. In the near future, yes. And discipleship, because we know that generation, you know, they need to be discipled, especially in this culture where we're being discipled by everything else. Yes. That is not necessary. Right. Yes. Not needed. Lots of discipleship happening. It's overwhelming, right? So why not, you know, again, have that safe place, you know, for them. I think that's amazing. If you'd like to learn more, please check out their website. And again, you could visit the Carry the Full Term website at carrythefullterm.org to see what our volunteer needs are and to see how you can serve, whether in the role of a volunteer or we currently have a couple of openings on our board. Please submit an application, and we would love to have you on board to join our amazing community of humble servants and to help women transform and change their lives, because that's what we do here. We invest in women, and as a result of that,
that babies are born, new generations are impacted, our community is stronger, and we love and we celebrate with each other. Thank you for joining us, Priscilla. I hope to have you again. Please
Thank you
say
for
you'll
having
come
me.
again.
Yes.
Thank you. I mean, we could keep talking
I'll be
forever,
ready,
right?
right?
Thank you, and welcome to the Breaking Cycles Carry to Full Terms podcast. We are happy to be here with you. Until next time, you have been listening to the Carry to Full Term Breaking Cycles podcast. To learn more about our organization, visit us online at carriedtofullterm.org. Your host has been Frances Robin. Marketing director has been Emily Enox. Music was provided by Ryan Robin. Thank you for joining us. Visit us again at carriedtofullterm.org to learn more about our mission. You have been listening to the Carry to Full Term Breaking Cycles podcast. To learn more about our organization, visit us online at carriedtofullterm.org. Your host has been Frances Robin. Marketing director has been Emily Enox. Music was provided by Ryan Robin. Thank you for joining us. Visit us again at carriedtofullterm.org to learn more about our mission.